Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a little special treat today. I have the privilege of introducing you to Matthew, who is one of our global workers, and I'll let him talk about himself, where he's serving, what he's doing.
All right, so I'm Matthew. We're here in Bangkok, Thailand. My wife Amber and I and our four kids. We've been here just over 7 years now. Before that, we were in Central Europe, in Slovakia and in Poland.
Real quick
Yes.
question, how did you become a global worker?
Yeah, I didn't want to be. It really wasn't my A plan. I won't lie to you about that. I'm like a pastor's kid of a pastor's kid of a pastor's kid. So I was
Yeah.
really determined that I wouldn't be in any kind of like formal ministry. And I had my plan all set out, and God had a very different plan. And if you would have asked me back then, I would have said God wasn't speaking. But the reality was is I didn't want to hear what he had to say at that time.
Mm.
Long story short, I took a year off from school to kind of figure it out, and really Holy Spirit was so faithful to like walk me through it, that it wasn't a desire or a target that I was missing, but it really was God had a plan laid out for me if I was willing to walk that out with him.
Tell us how you got involved. I know that you're working with refugees in your context. Would you mind sharing what that looks like?
So we didn't come to Thailand planning on working with urban refugees. We had no idea really about what the situation with refugees is here. I work with Erdo and Child Care Plus, and so that was the focus. And one morning from the window of our apartment, I looked down and I saw a truck that had just a huge cage on the back, and it was packed full of people. And I thought, that's weird. And I kept seeing it until eventually one morning I got on my motorbike and I followed it as far as I could until I got to the gates of something called an immigration detention center. And I wasn't allowed to go in anymore. And, and trying to figure out what that was, and learning about the situation of refugees here in the city, I believe that awareness has to lead to action. And so as I became aware of what refugees are facing here.
What is happening with refugees in Thailand?
Yeah, the legal framework for refugees and recognizing refugee status here actually just changed in September, but it's still super unclear what it actually means. Bottom line would be refugees still don't have the rights to accommodation, transportation, education, employment, or healthcare, which is pretty much like all of life. And so Thailand is really an easy place to get to. We welcome tourists. We need to make our borders nice and open. People come because they're trying to get out of a horrible situation. They see they can get here thinking there's going to be a way forward. The reality is it's hard, and they get here, they've spent all their money, they've burned all their bridges relationally, they're stuck, there's not much of a way forward. And then on top of that, the government has a kind of deterrent approach with these immigration detention centers, these 22 IDCs around the country, where if you're caught, you are detained indefinitely. They can hold you for years and years and years, in really like subhuman conditions.
Matthew, I would love for you to share a story, one that grabs your heart.
Yeah, so again, at one of these IDCs, the biggest one is here in Bangkok, so just down the road from where we lived. And I was meeting a mom, and her kids and her adult children and her husband were detained, held in separate rooms. They would never be able to see each other. And often it's a form of control. If some of the family members are out and some are in, you control that whole family. They're not going to leave their family. And so we would meet, and she would cook meals, like a little taste of home. And as a foreigner, I would be able to go in and visit certain members of her family. And I just asked her, like, what do you wish? Like, what are you wanting for in this situation? And she had very limited English. And so she said to me, I dream of having my family here, and she made this big mama bear hugging motion. I dream of having my family here, but she's like, I can't have them here yet. But she's like, but I know that God has them here. And circled out the palm of her hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's just probably the most beautiful representation of just God's love for us, and like a parent's understanding of God's love for us as his kids. God has a special place in his heart for refugees, the foreigner, the orphan, the widow. Biblically, those are the most vulnerable folks. God has a special place in his heart for refugees, right there in the palm of his hand.
So there you go. You have a little bit of a context of what it looks like to work with refugees in a different context, in a global context. Listen, if your heart is reaching out right now and God is stirring it, we would love to chat with you. So you can email us at goglobalmobilization@poac.org. You can message us personally as well, and we would love to continue that chat with you.